This is iCastNews.com, live and direct from United Nations headquarters in New York City. And this is heat in the Middle East. This week, the heat is being felt, but it's hard to see where it's coming from because there's so much smoke from the wars breaking out all over as the conflict in Syria has spread to Iraq and threatens Jordan, Lebanon, maybe even Palestine and Israel. However, there is in the Middle East at least the glimmering, the ray of hope, not so much obscured by the fog of war, the smoke of war, but by diplomacy. Iranian Deputy Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi today has announced that there is preliminary agreement on the five-power talks, that is, five powers plus Germany plus Iran, about the 6-month window of negotiation for Iran walking back, along with the world community, from the precipice of becoming a nuclear power. All the details are not in, but out of Geneva, the Deputy Foreign Minister of Iran has said that pending confirmation in Tehran, that there is agreement on how to proceed as long as they can get some kind of assurances that Iran can, if AP reports are to be believed, proceed along the lines of allowing nuclear research to be conducted at universities and certain specific think tanks. The exact parameters of this have yet to be obtained. Moreover, there are 2 days being given for consultations for the Big Five plus Germany plus Iran to confirm with their governments back home that the principles outlined in Geneva are agreeable before next week proceeding with real negotiations in Geneva. However, in other parts of the Middle East, worry is spreading. Secretary General Ban Ki-moon today said that the Palestinian-Israeli situation, the perilous status quo, is being threatened, even as Secretary of State John Kerry engages in shuttle diplomacy, frantic shuttle diplomacy back and forth. The latest threat to this perilous status quo, the announcement that Israel is going to build more than 1,000 new units of housing on the occupied West Bank. This does not bode well for negotiations in the peace process. However, whatever the heat being taken by Secretary of State Kerry, this may be a propitious time for negotiations on this issue because there is so much pressure being put on the world community about Syria, where you have different insurgent groups fighting each other in the northern part of the country, and particularly as the world community focuses on the outbreak of violence in parts of Iraq, particularly Fallujah. The operative question is, how much are the insurgents engaging in a Shiite-Sunni battle? How much of this is spillover from the war in Syria? And how much, at least according to questions being raised at UN headquarters, is Saudi money funding and funneling arms and other war equipment into Iraq as a way of counterbalancing Iran? This is the idea that the Saudis, who have stepped back from a role in the Security Council because they felt so insulted that the United States was opening up more relations with Iran, it remains to be seen just how the Saudis are repositioning and reasserting themselves in the Middle East, and whether this will further the Shiite-Sunni war, which seems to be taking on larger and larger roles both in Iraq and in Syria. So as January begins, as Ban Ki-moon has urged the participants in Syria to act more decisively, to negotiate more fervently, as the United Nations grapples with how to support and care for more than 2 million people who are displaced out of Syria and the Middle East, as the European Union castigates its own members for taking in too few refugees from Syria, as the United States tries to do a dance of diplomacy where they stay out of involvement in military actions in both Fallujah and in Syria. The Middle East is getting smokier and more war-prone than 2 weeks ago at the beginning of this year. So, as the year of the horse begins, as Ban Ki-moon tries to urge the world, especially the Middle East, to deal more fully with peace, progress, and positive actions for the global community, the smoke and the heat in the Middle East is rising and is becoming more ominous. For ICASTnews.com, live and direct from United Nations headquarters in New York City, for Heat in the Middle East, I'm Jonathan Sanders.